Hey there viewers, thank you for tuning in to Supermariodiagnostics once again. Today we have a 2007 BMW M6 with a V10 in it, and it is running rough according to the customer, and it came from another shop and just about everything has been changed. Well, not everything. So according to the RO, the computer has been changed. I can see the original computer right there. The ignition modules have been swapped side to side. The oxygen sensors have been replaced. Spark plugs have been replaced, amongst other things. It is running rough. We're going to go ahead and recreate the symptom, but that's after clearing the codes, because this does have cylinder shut off. I'm going to go ahead and post on the screen the pre-scan that I did, and it had misfire codes for just about every single cylinder in the vehicle. So that being said, let's go ahead and recreate the symptom. We're going to go ahead and clear the codes. What I did was run it just to see what would happen. This is what came back: 1, 2, who knows what that was, probably 3, 4, 5, and number 10, and tank empty. Very typical, huh? Like they bring it a vehicle to fix and on an empty tank. Let's go ahead and clear the codes. All codes completed. Let's go ahead and start this sucker up. It already set a code. Let's go ahead and read the codes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10. And that is where we are. We're missing basically a bank. So where do we start, right? Somebody's already gotten started on this. They replaced a bunch of parts. We're not going to do the same thing. Hopefully we'll just replace what we need. But not before testing. First thing I like to do, as many of you know, but I'll say it anyway because repetition is king when it comes to memorizing stuff and teaching and learning stuff. That's what helped me learn this to begin with, is watching all those scanner data videos over and over and over and over again until it just stuck. So the first thing I always do with misfires, always, is, that's right, rule out engine mechanical first, because it's the most expensive repair most of the time. And it's fairly easy to get compared to anything else. I mean, the data that you get from that is pretty easy to get usually. But on this vehicle, it may be a little different. So let's go ahead and take a look under the hood. Of course, I always put my maintainer on. We got the V10. It's got different separate throttle bodies. It's not that easy to gain access. We got access to the injectors on this side. I really got to work on my focus, on my camera focus. But on this side, we got to remove some stuff just to get to that. I think it might be easier to look for a fuse. I'm not sure yet. If I remember correctly, this thing has an electronics box over here. We're going to have to get this out of the way. And I'm going to need both hands. So I'm going to, looks like somebody's already been here too. Obviously, since I'm pretty sure the DME lives under there. You know what? Let's just go ahead and do that. That might be a 14. It might be, sometimes it's a 10 millimeter. That works. So we got this air quality sensor, or whatever you call it, AUC. Oh no, I'm sorry, that's a hood latch. This is the AUC sensor. And we got a bunch more here. Where is all of them? Just gonna get this out of the way. We got this going on over here. We got a lift right there. Slide that out of the way. We got this one. What are we missing? Got this in the way. All right, doing it Keep DeFazio style, one-handed. And Got our electronics box right there. It's not usually how I do YouTube videos. I usually just skip all this part. But since you guys asked, I'm delivering. All right. I'm gonna take a nice little look at this just to do a visual, but you can see our donor DME right there. I want to see if we can find, usually all of the fuses and relays pertaining to the engine electronics live in that box, so that's why I did that. I want to see if we could find an injector. You know what, let's just do it all in one shot. Why not, right? I already had it set up according to VIN, so we're gonna look at it that way. And I'm gonna go to powertrain management, engine controls, and then I'm gonna do my typical control F, oops, sorry, INJ injectors. We got one hit right there. We're gonna look for it. We can see all of our injectors right there. We can see that it goes to a terminal 15 power saving relay, which it doesn't really tell us where that's at. So we're gonna keep following it and see if we can find a fuse for it. I do apologize if we're going off screen here because I'm trying to hold the camera and do this at the same time. So we got fuse 201. Fuse 201 at the engine electronics fuse carrier. Let's go see where F201 goes. I'm gonna press F201. No dice. Let's put a space on there. Nothing. Let's put fuse 201. Nothing. Let's just put fuse. Goodness. Fuse box locations. We got glove box, fuse box, and we got luggage. We don't have the one that's the engine one. We got fuse carrier, engine electronics right there. We got a little something right here. So that is our area. We already knew that, but which one of these is our fuse, our relay, terminal 15 saving relay, power saving relay? See if we could identify it by using the colors. So we've got red, green, green and white, and brown. So luckily for us, it's out in the open like this. I'm gonna take a quick look. It looks like somebody's already had this kind of a part, but I'm gonna take a look at all of these relays and see which one matches our diagram. And I'll be right back. Looks like I may have gotten lucky on the first try because according to our diagram, this is our correct one. It's gonna be very hard for you guys to see, but we have a brown, a green and white, and a red. So we're gonna try cranking this thing and hopefully it'll just crank. All right. Interesting. Sounds pretty even. What do you guys think? It sounds even, but my ears have deceived me in the past. And this is one of those moments where it's like, okay, do I continue on? By the way, this is by the way, this has gotten full approval for Diag, so we're just gonna go. This is one of those moments where it's like, okay, it sounds good, but should we skip the mechanical part and just assume it's good completely, or maybe it's off at the crank? I don't know. But bank to bank sounds kind of good. Let's try it one more time. The question is, my goodness, all this noise. I do apologize. Question is, do we get closure on this and we find out exactly what's going on compression wise, or do we just trust our gut and say, hey, it sounds even, it doesn't sound like a bank-to-bank issue, and it looks like you have a bank-to-bank issue? If I'm not mistaken, these have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on one side and 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 on the other side. And we're gonna, just for the heck of it, I'm gonna look to see where the which bank is which bank. So number 1, that's usually what I type in here. It says left and right are referenced from the point of view of the driver while sitting in the driver's seat. The right hand holds 1 through 5, the left hand bank holds 6 through 10. Cylinders 1 and 6 are closest to the front of the vehicle. So yes, it is. BMW has consistently been just like Ford. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 1, 2, 3, 4 should I say, and 5, 6, 7, 8 on the other side, but obviously this is a V10, so this other shop that it came from, we're actually we know the owner pretty well, and I want to do my due diligence and get the data to show him that bank to bank mechanically, this is the reason why we're moving on from it. Even though it sounds like it's even, I don't want to jump the gun and possibly go into a rabbit hole only to find out that we have other issues. So I'm going to do that for the sake of documentation, because that's what they're paying us for. They're paying us to diagnose this thing. Now, mind you, we're testing. We're not throwing parts at this thing. We're testing. So I'm going to do my part and get... It takes really little time. Get some in-cylinders on both banks, compare them, and then save that in the DVI. And then I'll be okay with moving on, because the last thing I want to do is just move on from a mechanical issue, and just because it kind of sounds good and there actually be a problem. Now, there may not be a problem, but this is for the sake of documentation. That's what we're going to do. What you doing?
Working on this garbage.
He said working on those Porsche.
Yep. Oil filter housing, oil cooler.
Looks like you're having some fun there, brother.
Loads of it.
Loads of it. So, after doing the in-cylinders on this wonderful piece of machinery, we came to some kind of a conclusion here. Well, at least I did. I don't know if you guys can see this well, so I'm going to do a little something here. And this is cranking. This is overlaid. And my cylinder number 2 is this one right here. It's got a late exhaust valve opening. At least that's what it looks like. If not, at the very least, there's a discrepancy between exhaust valve opening times. And there is this right here. On the number 2 cylinder, on the number 2 bank, we've got a very straight, like there's a very little vacuum happening in that cylinder during the induction stroke, whereas the good cylinder has a pool. So yeah, I don't want to jump the gun and call out a bunch of conclusions, but that's where I'm at. We've got a discrepancy. This is cranking. I am matching them though at 0 and 120 psi. So we're matching them and by pressure, and we are also matching them by 0 to 720 degrees. So that way we could get a realistic picture of what's going on with the vehicle. And my running overlay, of course I am matching them. So these are 2 different RPMs, but there is a discrepancy as well on the exhaust valve opening. And if I did my measurements correctly, put my 0 degree over here, my 720 degree right over here, we have a discrepancy of about 13.6 degrees, which is at least a tooth, I want to say. In most cases, that's about a tooth difference. Will it cause misfires? A tooth? Knowing BMWs, to be honest with you, knowing BMWs, I'm surprised it even runs. Some of them will just not even run if there's a timing issue too much of a timing issue. It wouldn't even run. It would just shut it off. But on these, it might not. But I think this is going to be useful information. I will inform the customer of our findings before we proceed and see what they want to do. I don't know if they'll want to fix it or who knows what. I don't know if this video will continue on after this, but just in case, I think it's worth mentioning that we should always check mechanical first. And yes, even though it sounds great, there's still a tooth difference at the very least, 13 degree difference running, and even more while cranking. So I'm going to present my findings to the customer, which is another shop owner, and say, hey, listen, do you want us to keep digging, or do you want to do something with this information? Because in the end of the day, it's still a discrepancy in the exhaust valve opening. That being said, the reason why we didn't hear anything compression-wise is because exhaust timing doesn't necessarily, most of the time, does not necessarily affect compression, because compression is directly affected by RPM and by intake valve timing. So if your intake valve is late, you're going to have less of a stroke, you're going to have less compression. If you have advanced intake timing, you're going to have higher compression and a longer stroke. But exhaust happens after the compression. That happens after the power stroke. So you're not going to have necessarily, unless the exhaust valve was so way out that it interfered with the compression, you're not necessarily going to have a compression issue. So that's why our clear flood test didn't sound too bad, but the thing's misfiring on a whole bank. As for why number 10 is misfiring, I would imagine it's just the next one in the firing order. I think we have a bank-to-bank issue. I'm going to see if I could look up any information to back that up, like our firing order. But I think that that's a result of firing order. So let's see if we can find anything here. We are supposed to have at least 6.5 bar cranking, which we do have, but let's go ahead and see our firing order. If hopefully we'll have one. And I don't know that we will. Let's see if we have, if I press Control F, firing, we have 4 clicks, we got nothing. We don't have a firing order, but I can only imagine that number 10 is just in the thick of it. I don't necessarily believe that there's an issue with number 10, even though we have a misfire code for it. I think it's just a firing order issue. You know, we're having a bank-to-bank issue, and number 10 is just caught in the middle, so to speak, and count it as a misfire. Don't trust your ears. Prove your findings. Do mechanical, rule out mechanical before going too far, especially on a bank-to-bank issue. And test, don't guess. Thank you all for taking the time to watch. And I will go ahead and continue bothering my brother for today.